is Sharul from the Web3 Passport, and today I'm joined by Isabella. Isabella, you are a community lead at Ethereum Foundation, and here we are on the third day or the final day of Ethereum conference in Dublin. And Isabella, so you are community lead at Ethereum Foundation. So, what we would like to know about your journey on what brought you to this stage to be in working in Web3 and blockchain space with Ethereum Foundation as a community lead. So, we would be so interested to know about your whole story from where it all started and till today, how it's going.
Sure. First
Yeah.
of all, thank you so much for the invite. It's been an enormous pleasure to come back to Dublin and to be here witnessing the first Ethereum event in this city of 1,000 welcomes. And so yeah, I mean, if you want to know like the whole story, we
Yeah.
might say like the 2 or 3 days like talking.
Yeah.
But I would
Oh.
say, yeah,
Okay.
that's a long story.
Yeah.
But definitely my journey in Web3 and lending it at the Ethereum Foundation. Just recently, actually, I got in just a month ago. And yes,
All
so it's like it's still like
right.
pretty new.
Yeah.
But I've been in the space for the past 2 years, which I don't feel it's not that much. I mean, I'm still like learning and like learning new things, getting to know like different projects, people as well. But I would say everything started in Dublin 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I moved here in 2013 to as part of my studying abroad. So I came to Dublin to study marketing and PR.
And from Brazil?
From
Did you move
Brazil,
from
correct.
Brazil?
Like from the
Oh,
northeast
right.
of Brazil.
So that's when you left your home
Yes,
to go
yes,
to Dublin.
yes. Like
Yeah.
this like 19 years old kid
Yeah.
that couldn't like enter like some pubs here.
All
I
right.
still remember that.
Yeah.
And just like, like being here and like exposing myself to an international environment, learning a new language as well. English was always like the hardest language for me to learn. Like back home, I was like very big on like studying Japanese, Spanish, French, and then but I was always like very terrified about like learning English, and then so that's why I took the decision. Say, hey, I mean, I'm moving to an English-speaking country, like like to learn more about the culture and the language as well. And then I lived in Dublin for a year and a half, came back to Brazil. But I realized that like at some point my world has expanded more than
Right.
like the
Yeah.
geographically boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. Your
And
perspective completely changes. You see world from a very different viewpoint altogether,
yes,
and cultures,
yes.
international experience can have such a big impact on how
For
we see
sure,
the world.
for sure.
Completely transforms as if a new chapter of your life. It happened to me as well when I moved from India to Dublin. I always describe it as that I was like that horse who could see the world from just a narrow point. And then when I moved to Dublin, understanding
Expanded.
cultures, understanding different viewpoints, I was respecting cultures and different perspectives
Yes.
and a lot more.
yes.
Yeah, yes, certainly. Okay, yeah.
And then pretty
Yeah.
much what happened, and while I was living and here in Ireland, I could like have the chance like to travel, like to
Yeah.
many countries and places. And there was like the time that I got the opportunity to work in a nonprofit, a student association in Switzerland, and then 6 months later, I was like in Brazil. I was supposed to finish my finish college. Didn't happen. I told my parents, like, "Hey, I'm moving to Switzerland." I was like, "Oh, really?" And then I lived there for a year, and I also like at that time I realized I was like I'm still not ready like to go back home, because once again my world has expanded. There were like so
Right.
many opportunities, like so many people that I got to meet, so many interesting projects that I could work with. And then I got the opportunity so at that time I've been always working communication, PR, marketing, and that at the time, this was 2016, there was this opportunity to do an internship in an AI translation startup in Portugal. And I was like, I mean, I've been to Portugal once or twice. I was never like really like drawn like to the idea of moving
Yeah,
there.
that you're gonna be living there.
Yeah, but I was like, okay, that's a nice country.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
and then turns
People go-
out
yeah.
what was supposed to be a 6 months internship,
Right.
they hired me and I stayed 5 years there doing community for so like I said, it was an AI, it is an AI translation startup. So I was working with language communities from all over the world. So not only understanding like how communities and how languages, like people are incentivized incentivized, like people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different walks of life are incentivized and they work together towards the same goal.
Right.
And
Yeah.
after that, what happened is so I stayed in that company for 5 years, and
That
5 years.
was long time.
Yeah,
to
5 years
stay.
in startup
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's like I said, I mean, I dropped out college, but I feel that like I do have kind of like a PhD in community after like so many
Yeah.
so many
Community,
years.
cultures, and people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
so this was like 2021, like just like during the pandemic, I was kind of like low key looking for something new, like still
Right.
like I still wanted to work in community and so on. And then I stumbled upon Web3, the
Right.
DAO space,
Yeah.
and so my first project that I got like to contribute and work full time was Aragon, the DAO tooling platform, and it was amazing for me like to see how people get together and coordinate. Like I do believe like DAOs is like the next frontier of like community building and community participation, and it was amazing like to witness like how like technology how the technology advanced like to get people together, but we still can't like forget the human factor. Like we do believe, and this is like the work that I do, it's mostly like virtually like based and talk like with people, but actually attending like events like this one and many others like all over the world is like so important for me, like to get to know people's stories, people walks of life, and say, okay, how can my product actually like not only comprise like this group of developers that are like building, because we do use our bias like whenever like whatever we are building, but like the more we talk with people and understand like how they like interact with like their communities, the product, and so on. So it's like, okay, like how we can build something that we strive to be universal and
bias free. There are no stereotypes.
Exactly.
Probably we want to get away from those stereotypes at times that might come in building a product or service, or maybe in our human interaction.
Yes.
Yeah.
definitely
Right.
Definitely.
So-
And
so
then
tell us
after
more
that,
about it.
I was working in a social token project. Like most of the team were based in Portugal, and it was like still like looking for like something different. Like I said, like I had an amazing time, and I have to say, like being someone that transitioned from funny because like now all like not all the people, but there's like this big hype in AI right now, and there's like, oh yeah, shall we work in AI? I was like, yeah, I've done that. It's cool, but I'm happy in Web3, and I can definitely say that like transitioning, like from tech to still tech, like in Web3. This was like definitely as a woman coming, like from a South American country, I can definitely say this is like the space that I felt like most welcomed, that people wouldn't like judge me like by my look or by what's like missing on my resume, because like I said, I mean, I don't have a college degree, but this doesn't like stop me, like to go like for different opportunities and like to be heard based on what I had to say and to contribute, and not like my qualifications and like my credentials in that case. So so I felt like very, very welcomed in this space, and like with the ability to contribute not only with the projects that I was working full time, but like also different projects. And that's how I stumbled upon the Ethereum Foundation and Ethereum.org.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
tell
so
us about
sure.
Let's carry on.
So there was like a very
Yeah.
interesting story. So like I said, my background is in my work background is in translation, and last year I was in DevCon in Bogota.
Not only in translation, but in people, but in humans.
I like to think that. I like to think that way. And so last year was in DevCon Bogota, and one of the things that's like and now like to explain what Ethereum.org is about, it's an open source learning portal for everyone that wants to learn more about the Ethereum ecosystem. So, and the good thing about Ethereum.org, as it's an open source portal, everyone can go there and contribute with content, with code, design, and translations. Because, and this is like something that we were just talking like some minutes ago, in the space, and I mean, I was lucky enough to speak English, Spanish, and other languages, and being able to, like learn Web3 in English. So I wasn't born in this space in English, but we do have this, we kind of think that like we are like, I like to, okay, so maybe what happens that we are in this bubble that we think everyone in the space speak English and can understand. And I always face this problem whenever like I go back and visit my parents that only speak Portuguese. It's like, what do you do for a living? It's like, I'm in Portugal eating pastéis de nata. That's just like, what else? So like, what do you actually do for a living? So, and Ethereum.org, one of the amazing initiatives that they have is actually like to translate content and resources into several languages. We are we take a lot of pride saying that we are now translated over 50 languages. And that's how I got to know Ethereum.org, because during that conference in Colombia, they were presenting about the translation program and how they gathered the community like to translate content in so many languages. And I was very interested to know about. And this is actually something that Mario were talking about, like his panel about employment in Web3 is like, if you are interested, like to work in a project, like just start in contributing, like go chat with the team. It's like, oh, hey, like, I have this and that. Like, how can I contribute? How can I help?
And that's the way to get into Web3 at this moment, to start talking and then learning from people, going to conferences and events and building up your knowledge base, and maybe availing of platforms like Ethereum.org and learning from there and build up your community. And that's the way to get into Web3. And that's what I have learned. I'm sensing, I'm experiencing it.
Amazing.
That's the way. Okay, let's carry on with the story. So with the conference in Colombia that you spoke about, was it before joining Ethereum?
It was way before. So that's exactly like how I got to know Ethereum.org. And then I started contributing. So I spoke with the team. It's like, hey, I might not be the best person, like translating in Portuguese, because now, I mean, like, I speak like originally Brazilian Portuguese, but now living in Portugal, so there's like a bit like a difference in languages. So like my Portuguese is not amazing in that sense, but I was like, hey, I'm happy like to contribute in anything related with community, like just like giving insights on how participation, engagement, and then I got along with the team. And then later on, they opened a full-time position to work as a community lead.
Wow.
And then I was like thinking about applying. And like, funnily enough, like the team, we were already, talking like on Discord. And so I say, hey, you should apply. I was like, okay, if the team asked me that I said I should apply, I was like, maybe it's a sign. And then I went through like all the the job screening process, and I joined like a month ago, and it's been an amazing journey, like to coordinate and to work not only with the community but like for the community, and like towards a goal that's very close to my heart. I do believe that like technology, especially in the space that we are, it's evolving faster and faster, and it should be. But if we want to lead to a place and to projects that like leading to mass adoption and people understanding like how they can like contribute and how they can use the technology in their own life, there comes a part of like community, and there comes a part like attending events and speaking with people, because technology should evolve, and
faster to facilitate more people to accomplish their dreams. And
but then there comes the part like people's mindset, and this is like, and especially in many cultures that we see, there's still a lot of stigma, prejudice towards like what's like blockchains about, what's crypto is about. So some people is like, this is like not for me, this is like super high tech, or just like associated with bad things that happen like in other fields of society overall. But I want to, one of my main goals is like to turn into like this people who are like skeptical about the technology, and say, hey, this is like a source, this is like a resource for you, like like a hope for the future. This is like something that some people might want to like work full-time in Web3. Some people might just like want to interact, transferring transferring money abroad. Some people might just like interact with a certain project, or just like like to hang it out in the metaverse. But being able to understand the technology and how they can maybe like use in their like everyday lives, it's something that I do think there's still a lot of room like to people, because this is like, once again, especially like this hackathon, the organizers are saying, this is like not only coders environment. We want to bring everyone from different backgrounds, from different walks of life, because this is how we build like a true community, like a true like diverse and community like with many people thinking and like going towards the same direction, but like bringing what they have um, at the best.
Wonderful, very nicely said. So it's been 1 month. I'm loving your enthusiasm. I'm loving every single aspect of this conversation and mainly about your journey, which is so beautiful and very exciting. And yeah, so 1 month with Ethereum Foundation. And now you are here in Dublin. So what does it role look like for the in 3 months time, in 6 months time? Are you going to be traveling a lot and connecting the communities together? Like today you're here in Dublin, and then we have Eat Porto, we have Eat Samba in Brazil. Yeah,
I hope
maybe
so.
Eat
I
in
hope
Switzerland
so.
too.
I hope so. I mean, one
Yeah.
of the aspects that I love
Still,
about
yeah.
community in Web3 and like working in community is actually the ability like to connect with people
Yeah.
in real life. And there is a balance, like talking specifically about my role, there is of course a balance between like the initiatives that we establish like online and events that we are able to attend and so on. One of the initiatives that we recently launched that was not organized by me, but I carried on as I joined the foundation was what we call like the writing cohort. We realized there were like many non-technical people. They wanted like to write about the Ethereum ecosystem. They wanted to write about projects and so on, but like they would find like hesitant to do this. Like, yeah, I don't know how to write well, or maybe like I need an extra motivation. And then we launched a 3 weeks course for people that's like, get together, like learn like techniques and just like connect with other people. And this was like something that as we were launching the cohort, one of the things that I asked was like, hey, are we also considering people that might not want to write in English? And they're like, oh, we didn't think about that. And then actually we self-organized a sub cohort of people writing in Spanish, because they say that's what makes sense for my community. And I was like, yeah, go for it. And so yeah, we tend to balance like a lot of initiatives, like I said, as an open source product, as an open source platform. There are like many ways that people like can get connect and engage. We're like still trying like to balance and understand like what like motivates people like to come contribute, how we can include more people, because as an open source product, it's kind of like a playground for everyone that like wants to learn and wants to contribute, and we want to be like accessible for people from different, not only in the Web3 space, but like people who are overall interested and like could contribute.
Definitely, I agree. And sorry, maybe if I interrupted you.
No, no worries.
On that, I wanted to ask you your opinion on how Brazil and Latin American continent that's part of the world is doing, because I had been talking to a few people from that part of the world, from Cuba and other countries, that there is such an enthusiasm when it comes to learning Web3 and blockchain and getting into this technology, but the challenge is that most of the content is in English. And that's where I really like knowing that Ethereum.org is facilitating the content into 50 plus languages, and is facilitating, making it easier for people to learn these concepts into their own languages and spreading the word out. And that side of the world is still struggling. Maybe India as well is struggling in kind of grasping the concept in our own native language. So how is it going right now in Latin America? Would you have some insights?
Definitely. And this was like I said in the beginning, I wasn't born in Web3 in Europe.
Yeah.
And of course, as I come like with a Brazilian background, but living in Europe like for the past 10 years, I kind of like now navigate into like the two words. And it was very interesting for me. And that's why not last year, but 2 years ago, I asked the team. I learned about Ethereum Rio, like a conference, like first time they will be organized an Ethereum conference in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And I was like, oh, and like myself was like, oh, maybe I could, like contribute. And then I messaged one of the organizers. They'll say, oh, hey, I'm based in Lisbon, but is there anything that I could help? And I say, yeah, for sure. And then I was working remotely in the team, and then I went to the conference. And it was very interesting to see that, for example, how Web3 is shaped based on people's like cultures and walks of life. Here in Europe, people have different problems. People talk about like DAOs, coordination. I mean, it's like, it's a very like valid problems to have. But when you go to Latin America,
well, we here have first world problems. You know, I found out about first world problems.
I was about to say that. I didn't know if I was allowed to say, but now exactly. Yeah, it's very first world problem, which is still valid problems. But when we think about, for example, and this I can definitely say, I was still a bit skeptical when I learned about like DeFi. It's like, oh, people making money, but why? Like, but then when we go like to Latin American economies and using like Argentina, for example, like the inflation rate is like goes like up to the roof, and people really need to have ownership on their own money. And we do see like problems like now we're seeing, okay, like how we are going like to coordinate and create like a new nation in Web3, which makes total sense here in Europe. But then when we go like to more like grassroots like problems in Latin America, that people are not able, you know, like to make payments and just, you know, like overall like to live. And it's very humbling to go there and see that's like, okay, how can I like, not in a sense of like how can I create something for them, but how can I empower them with the tools that they create something that makes sense for them. So that's why I'm super bullish on you know like teams that like working, local teams that are working and in solutions that make sense like for the place that we're living. Like we see like many examples, you know, like in Argentina, in Nigeria, in Brazil as well. And there's like, yes, because I don't want to be, like I said, I don't want to be like the person that comes like from Europe and just show us like, oh, hey, that's like the way you should do. I just want to be there like to give the knowledge that I have, the resources, like, hey, build what makes sense for you. And this actually, it's what community is about. We are just here, you know, like to support each other, like in the ways, in the meaning, like in the means that we can. But at the end, we want, and also like people take a much more pride, like to build something that will be useful for them, and not like me saying, hey, this is like what you should do.
Yeah, that's what you should do, and you must do, instead of letting them an opportunity to facilitate them to create things for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So how do you see your 2023 to be like with Ethereum? What are your plans, and you know, what's your vision like?
Yeah, so I plan like to still like going to a lot of conferences. Like this year, it's like my third conference. I've been like declining some of them, but my vision, it's definitely try to welcome more. We do have actually a big base of our communities actually like in the US, in India as well, in China, and like now one of my goals is like try to expand the Ethereum.org community to Latin America and Africa as well. We still like, that's why one of the, for us, it's very important, you know, like to connect with conferences. I'm most likely I'm going to Ethereum Argentina in August this year, and I mean some other teammates are going to Eat Safari in Kenya, and so on. So we are trying like to connect with not only local communities but overall like learning communities that, you know, like are training, are giving resources to people like to come and learn, and then as like the Ethereum.org, and then we say, hey, how can we support you? So definitely one of my goals like for this year is like to connect with as many communities as I can, and say like just like show up and say, hey, how can I help you? Wonderful.
How can I help you? And also this education, I think it's so primary aspect right now to spread the education, spread the concepts out there,
and learn
in the
with them
local
as well.
language, learn with them, get their viewpoints, and let the people speak, and not to just impose yourself, just let them speak and take their viewpoints and build up their right, you know, build up around it. Wonderful, great. And would you have any last minute thoughts to share, or last message to share with the audience?
Sure. I mean,
for women mainly, you know, what do you see? How do you see the participation of women in this space, and a message for women to, you know, what steps they should take? Well, you have already said that you have to start being, you know, showing up there. You have to start contributing into this space and just build it up, and that will make you a way to you know, position yourself into Web3 space. So,
definitely. I would say, I mean, for women and for other like groups, they are underrepresented, like in the tech industry and like Web3 in general. Find your community. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's terrifying in the beginning, and I remember like still like going like on my first conference, I was like, oh, okay, what I should do here, I don't belong here. And then like see like a minimally like technical panel or like workshop. I was like, oh my god, what you're talking about. And then one of the things that I definitely would encourage, that is like, don't be afraid to say I don't know, because this
absolutely.
actually opens up like the door to people, you know, like to learn things and come explain. And also don't be afraid to tell about the things you know. And I can definitely say that I still, and like most like women still like I can relate with most of women that suffer, you know, like with imposter syndrome. And sometimes I was like, why, who am I like to be talking and like with these people in this panel, and like who am I like to be like in this in this podcast itself. But then I was like, maybe my story, like my journey can, you know, like inspire someone, just like, you know, create this sparkle, like to search for new, like to search like for something new. And definitely don't be afraid to say I don't know, but also don't be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I know what you're talking about. Can I have, you know, like a seat in this panel, like in this space, in this company, to talk about and like to contribute on things?
Definitely, I completely agree with you. And so yesterday, as I had nearly 11 podcasts, and I heard
impressive.
and they were all the subject matter experts in their own field. Like just for example, regulation. I had a chat with Andrew Tijeli, and he is a partner and the head of blockchain and digital assets with Philip Lee, is one of the venture capitalist firm, and we had a conversation about regulations, and I was like, oh, I don't know about it, and I felt very nervous and a bit anxious that how I'm going to, you know, keep up with the conversation. So I really confessed with Andrew, see, I know nothing, I haven't done much research on a regulatory side of things, so I'll stay curious in this conversation and you will have to help me build it out. So I think we also have to confess these situations that you might not know everything, and it might lead you into some kind of complex circumstances. But I think confessing it that I'm happy to learn from you. Please let me teach me, and you know, I will absorb that information and I'll stay curious. It helps. It does help.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Lovely. And you were moderating a session today. It was on Web3 entertainment. So tell us about this moderating experience.
Pretty much the same thing. I mean, like I said, I'm not like very you know, like cultured about, like I know a lot of entertainment. That's pretty much, I started the panel saying that, hey, like here, like the only thing that I know is that I'm a big fan of Cristiano Ronaldo, and I spend like half of my paycheck like going to music festivals. You folks are the expert. I would just, you know, like ask questions like to guide you through. But it was like very interesting experience. One of the things I've been loving about it Dublin is that like the length of like the panel is actually allows people, you know, like if I'm like super new and know nothing about the topic. I mean, yesterday I was just participating into panels on virtual tourism and also social impact.
Interesting. And tell us a bit about it, like so virtual tourism, social impact, and also Web3 entertainment. Sum it up for us.
Yeah, and definitely one of like the takeaways that I had, especially on the virtual Web3 tourism panel, is that one of the things that people are like now, like it's not only, you know, like traveling, like you know, like taking like a plane, like going somewhere, but also like the experience and the anticipation of doing. And then like I could like definitely apply to my like work as like a community builder. It's like not only, you know, like taking actions like on like creating like initiatives, programs, but also like involving the community to build that together, because it is as rewarding as like the journey is as rewarding as the destination. So I could definitely like see, I mean, like in a different way, but like definitely seeing like it creating resonates, like some parallels with the work that I do.
Lovely. Great. And the same with Web3 entertainment as well. What were your you know, and in essence, what would you
definitely
like to say?
One of the things that like I said, another parallel that I could create, the folks like Solomon, Kurt, and Luis, they were like mostly in the esports and the music industry. And one of the things that I asked like during the panel is like, how do you know, like fan engagement and participation and the communities they are building? It's actually, you know, myself like being like a super like football fan, like I know like how I am as like a community member, like how engaged I am like with the team that I support, like with the artists that I love about it, and how can we learn, like with these industries that are like not only in Web3, but they have been like engaging people, like moving masses, and people like from different walks of life, people like from all over the world, or they listen like to the same artists, or like support the same football club. How can we learn about community engagement with those folks, And this is like definitely some of like the insights that the door there is like, this is like definitely in other communities that I'm building something that I could apply.
Interesting. Very nice. What a wonderful conversation.
Thanks,
Thank
Amelia.
you so much for sharing your life, your thoughts, and all the experience so far. And we wish you all the best with Ethereum Foundation in your role as a community lead with them.
Thanks a million, Shiru. It's been an enormous pleasure to be here and to chat with you all.
To listen to your story is very interesting, and you're a wonderful person. You're such a wonderful human being, and it shows on in your aura. I always talk to people about their auras and chakras,
Thank you,
how
Shiru.
bright they are and how much sunshine they bring in the world, in people's life, and lovely.
So happy to hear that. Thank you.
Great. Martin, did you have something to talk to?
I actually wanted to
say,
ask,
let's do it.
You, as someone from a background, like we were working with artificial intelligence, like in the times when 99% of the world had no idea, nothing about artificial intelligence. So how would you say that artificial intelligence can help improve or change the Web3? Or how they are like kind of connected and correlated, like from your point of view, because you were basically you were in both industries, and you were in one of the industries when nobody was talking about that.
Yes.
So what is your point of view? How can AI revolutionize, for example, Web3? How it can help and what it can bring together?
Definitely, and I think just like as a background, I love the question that you asked. I think like definitely one of the backgrounds that I had is that when I joined like this translation AI startup, there's a lot of skepticism. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, AI is like will take over, like translators' job, and so it's like, no, actually, what we're gonna do is that translators, people who studied that like in college, and so they have a different role. They will translate, like books, technical content, while like we are like creating like platform like to translate customer support, which like anyone that speaks like two language are like able, like they tweak like the output for the translation machine. And there was like when I joined that like in 2016, there was a lot of like skepticism and so on. And then 5 years later, when I joined like the Web3 space, there is still like a lot of skepticism on what we're building. On AI, I think my take, it's definitely, it's not gonna take, it's not take over like people's job. It's actually
facilitating.
It will facilitate. And then one of the things that I love about AI is like how we can, like optimize some of the tasks so then people can have time outside. So I think like definitely one of the things that I see on facilitating like the work that like most of people do is that for now I see that there's a lot of, might not be like 100% related with Web3, but it will improve everyone's life in a sense. I see there is much more right now like the feasibility of like a 4 days work week, or people are working, like 6 hours a day. And this definitely like, and like by the time that you're working on focusing on something, you will be, like so, you definitely deliver like a much better work. And then because you also have time to focus in other aspects of your life. Your creativity, and time with your family, touch grass, travel.
And how I describe it as AI has helped me now with the ChatGPT as well. It has helped me reshape how my thought process, how I think about the things, how I think about writing, sometimes in the previous times, I think maybe we have gotten into a very casual way of writing, but ChatGPT is also making me think about the artistic way of writing, articulating it in a nice way. So I think for me, it has helped me kind of helped me understand. I'm just changing the way I think.
And like AI and like
One of the
being like
key.
inspired like by other by the panels like yesterday and also today, you create ways like to people to connect with each other. I mean, like talking about, you know, like the metaverse, avatars, and just overall for the people who doesn't have the ability for several reasons, you know, like to meet in real life, they get like better, you know, like to creating, you know, experiences for those people who feel part of a community or part of something. And I definitely see that there is a lot of connection between AI and the Web3 space, and like there are like many projects right now that are working on that direction to, you know, like to create better experiences, like first to create a better experience, and what the point that was mentioned like before that, to, you know, like to improve people's work so then they can actually expand and find time for other aspects of their lives, which is as important. I mean, a happy human can definitely deliver like a good job at their work. I mean, there is like no, I don't believe much in work-life balance. I believe, you know, like in good time management. You know, that like if I have 8 hours like to do my work every day, I would do my best, and then after that I would just, okay, folks, I need this time, you know, like to meditate. I need this time to travel. I need this time, you know, like to be outdoors. And this, I know that like this time outside, just like doing something that might not be related with my work. And I can definitely say one of the things that I enjoy doing, it's skateboarding, which is definitely not related with my work at all. But then when I'm on a skate, I don't think of anything. But then after that, I was like, oh my God, yeah, like my mind is like so
meditative.
It's like my sort of meditation.
Exactly. Every sport is a sort of meditation.
Yes, for sure.